Shalom, friends. We're going to continue with our study of Chovat HaTalmidim, of the summary chapter, the Tzivuyim va'azharot, the commands and warnings, so to speak, which are in the last chapter of the book before the articles that lead to the next book. We're on page Kuf Mem Dalet, 144. And the Rebbe is continuing with practices having to do with the morning routine. And he says, Kodem Kriyat Shema, Hafsek Eza Regeim V'chashov. Before you say Kriyat Shema, stop for a few seconds and think. And what should you think? Hineni mekabel atzmi ol malchut shamayim. First of all, I'm accepting on myself the yoke of heaven, of the kingdom of heaven, which is a simple idea about the idea of Kriyat Shema. And I'm annulling myself. This is a very Hasidic concept, the concept of bitul. I'm annulling myself to the greatness and the holiness of Hashem. And when you're thinking about this, that you're mevatel yourself, that you're annulling yourself to Hashem's greatness, then in that context, then say the Shema. In Brachot, Yud Gimel Amud Bet, and you should have the intention, like the rabbis in the Gemara in Brachos said, Lamicheyu b'shamayim v'aretz v'arba ruchot ha'olam, to coronate Hashem in heaven and on earth and in the four directions, east, west, south, north. There's some people have a minhag of moving their head in all the directions, as they said, the Shema for that purpose. And then he adds, and this is clearly based on the Tzeitel Katan, the introductory part of Noam Elimelech, his great-great-grandfather, the Noam Elimelech, Rav Elimelech of Lezhansk. He says, Ushata muchan lashlichet atzmecha be'esh l'shem kedushato yitbarach, that you're willing to throw yourself into the fire and die al kiddush Hashem, die for the sanctification of Hashem's name, for the unity of Hashem's name, as is understood as the commandment of the Shema, to unify Hashem's name. And we say in the next paragraph, even if Hashem takes away your life, you should want to give your life to not do avodah zorah, one of the three primary prohibitions that one has to give their life for. So this is one of the ideas of the Kriyat Shema, and as I said, he's clearly relating to the simple guided imagery that's found in the Tzeitel Katan of his great-grandfather Noam Elimelech, who talks about imagining yourself being willing to jump into a fire in order to sanctify God's name. It's pretty heavy stuff. They say in this holy Sfarim that if you really have this intention with full power and passion when you say the Shema, it's as though you actually fulfill this mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. Okay. He goes on now to a more general statement about the way sort of to run your day. He says, Have medayek b'maasecha o b'hitnagutecha kol hayom. Be exacting in your deeds and in your activities all day. Why? If the previous section was about Kiddush Hashem, so this now is going to bring in Chilul HaShem, that there's a way that a person could be defaming Hashem's name, God forbid, through their behavior. As the Rambam talks about in Hilchos Deos, it depends a lot on the stature of the person. The greater a person, the more exacting they have to be in their behavior. He says, Ki hayim rotzeh atah chas v'shalom lechalel et Hashem? Do you, God forbid, want to do a Chilul HaShem? Okay, and keep in mind that he's understanding, and I think it's even more so true in our time, a person who's learns Torah, a person who's a yeshiva bachar, a person or a bat midrashah, or even a person who looks religious has to be extra careful when they're in public that they don't create a Chilul Hashem, because people look at them and say, oh, that's how religious people act, as he's going to say right now. Do you want, v'yomru abriot, you want to create a situation where people will say, Re nada talmida zeh mitzvotav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu u'melomdei Torato. Look at that student who's one of the army of Hashem. We spoke previously about that expression, and who's learns the Torah of Hashem. Echu shafal v'garua mikol masav b'kol masav chas v'shalom. Look at his deeds are so disgusting the way he behaves. Chas v'shalom. We don't want to do that. We want to create a Kiddush Hashem, not a Chilul Hashem. Okay, one more, bottom of the page. Al titchaber lechaver ra. Do not connect with a bad friend, meaning a friend of yours who's turned, his deeds have turned bad. He's gone, as they say today, off the derech. If you want more on this topic, look back on page 73, 74 in the book Chovat HaTalmidim, where he talks about this in more detail. There he talks about how important it is to try to be makarev, to try to bring close your friend who seems to be going away from keeping the Torah and mitzvot, but that at a certain point you have to cut ties because of the potentially bad influence that he could have on you. Not clear to me always whether the Rebbe would say the same things today. Our situation is different, but perhaps. Don't like to speculate on those things. So what does he say? Al titchaber lachavera. Don't combine with a bad friend. Af misicha kala shelo kimitvachei kesha titrachei. Stay far away even from a simple discussion with him. Ki b'dibur achad shel leitzanut af b'kritza achat me'enav et kol hona Torah v'kedusha shesafta el kirbacha b'yigiat eser shanim yocholu chas v'shalom lehavish. He says, one word of leitzanus, of mockery, and even one way that he blinks, that he winks at you, can take all the Torah and all the holiness that you've gathered together and internalized over the last 10 years, and it can all go bad in one moment. That the possibility of influence, of negative influence, and here I think it's important that he's stressing leitzanut, making fun, scoffing, and mockery, and sarcasm. I would say that sometimes even, and maybe even more so, a sarcastic, cynical comments, even from people who are observant and learn Torah, can be extremely damaging, and especially people who are teachers of Torah have to be sensitive to their students and not engage in cynical, sarcastic comments, which can be so damaging to the people who are the more sensitive among them. Leave it at that. But in any event, again, and he doesn't address here the possible question, which would be interesting, what about joining with a bad friend for a good purpose? Now, we know that he was very supportive of his brother, the Edmar Chalutz, made Aliyah in 1920, Reb Shaya Shapira, and started the Poal HaMizrahi, and was very, very active in the Mizrahi, which was certainly the religious Zionists that worked together with the secular Zionists for the building of the land of Israel, even though the Rebbe himself was part of Agudat Yisrael, but I'm not sure he might have been more liberal in those cases. Again, here he's speaking to young yeshiva students, teenagers who are very impressionable and need to be more careful about these things. So let's take these points into account, think about them, how we can apply them in our own lives, and we should hear good tidings. Shabbat Shalom, Kol Tuv.